activity 27, we're going to bring in a new meaning of liberty, living under a government that has limits on it through a constitution. One thing you're going to see as we continue on with this course is that one of the really essential features or characteristics of the American system of government is the ways that we have found to keep government from harming its citizens. We've already studied one of these, which is self-government. So here you have the evil side of government, and you have self-government, which, as we've seen already, keeps government from harming us. And constitutions is another barrier that we have devised in our tradition to keep government from harming its citizens. You can see in that opening quotation from the Pittsfield petitions that there's this understanding that there's a strong bias of human nature to tyranny and despotism. So there's this understanding that, as we've seen, governments can be dangerous. So you need to find a way to keep government from harming its citizens. So the Pittsfield petitions are saying that the way to provide for posterity, their descendants, against a wanton exercise of power is by the formation of a fundamental constitution, and that's the main theme of this activity. If you go back in letter A to that quotation that I've said has been so helpful to me, MacDonald speaks of the need that we have for government to protect us from others, but also history teaching us that we need protection from government. So liberties consist in limitations on the powers of the sovereign. You need to find a way to put limits on what government can do. And letter B explains how we do that. The object of a constitution is to restrain the government. The way we put limits on government is by means of a constitution. Just the way laws restrain individuals, constitutions restrain governments. So a lot of times when I'm teaching this class on campus, I will turn to a student and say, so, Ms. Such and Such, do you have to obey the U.S. Constitution? Are you obeying the U.S. Constitution today? And they'll be a little flustered and they'll say, well, yes, of course I'm obeying the U.S. Constitution. But that was sort of a trick question. I mean, I don't want to embarrass anybody. But the point here is that no, we, the citizens, don't obey the Constitution. We give the Constitution. We're giving the orders to government through the Constitution. It's government that has to obey the Constitution, not us. So keep that in mind as we're going forward as to what a Constitution is and what it does. In letter C, the representatives of Berkshire County. You'll see people use different images to describe this. The representatives of Berkshire County speak of the Constitution as circumscribing the powers of the ruler. Circumscribe means to draw a circle around. So it's this kind of barrier. And what this barrier does is it affords a sacred barrier against tyranny and despotism. So that government will not harm its citizens. This is where it has to stop. And it's a sacred barrier, I think, because these rights of life, liberty, and property are sacred and must be respected by people and governments. Letter D, Jefferson, in a famous quotation, uses the image of chains, that in questions of power, let no more be heard of confidence in man, by which he means, I'm reading at the end of the quotation, just trusting people with power. The American insight, and this is something we inherited also from the British Constitution, you can't just trust government with power. If you do, it's going to kill you. And so let no more be heard of just trusting people with power. You have to bind people down from mischief. The people who have the power of government, you have to bind them down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution. So here's his image is chains. The Constitution is the chains by which we keep government chained down from harming us. So the main idea here is we need constitutions to keep us safe from government. So you can see how that main meaning of liberty, living under a government that does not harm us, is achieved through self-government